Pretty dangerous criminals there, right? Scary stuff. And hey, maybe you're worried about running into one of those people tonight on your way to the car to get some bonbons from the gas station. Well, don't worry. 11 of those, or 10 of those people now face 11 years in prison for that crime right there. Joining me now, Auron MacIntyre, wonderful commentator, someone I listen to every chance I get, author of the book, The Total State, which you should pick up if you want to understand what we're looking at here. Auron, 87-year-old survivor of a communist concentration camp, going to be thrown in prison for 11 years in the United States of America for singing praise and worship songs, and still half the Christians won't vote in this upcoming election. That's where we're at in this country.
Well, Jesse, you know well that destroying Christianity is a core goal of any communist regime, whether it be in Spain, Russia, China. They hate Christianity. They know that it serves as a moral alternative, another base that shields people from the control of the state, the mind control, the brainwashing, the forcing of alien values into places like the home and the sphere of the community. And so obviously they're going to go after these people. It's not hypocrisy, it's hierarchy. The people who are the foot soldiers of the regime, they can go burn down your house, they can go ahead and burn down your church, they can go ahead and burn down your business. But if you're sitting there interrupting something that is sacred to the regime, you're going to jail.
Auron, can you explain the complacency on the right? And I'm not just talking about practicing Christians, but we right now have open religious prosecution courtesy of the DOJ, and they're doing it in response to a Supreme Court ruling they don't like. That's how incredibly corrupt and inappropriate this is. Roe versus Wade gets overturned. The DOJ declares war on pro-lifers, and the right just doesn't care that much. Why?
There's an obsession with process. The right believes in order, and rightly so, right? We want to be the side of order. We want to be the side that follows the rules. That makes perfect sense. Until you realize that the institutions dictating those rules are completely captured. Until you realize that the rules are actually set up in a way not to build up your society, not to protect what you hold as traditional or sacred, core to your identity as a people, but instead is set up to destroy those things. And so a lot of conservatives who naturally want to protect their institutions, naturally want to protect the rule of law and the order, have no idea how to react when the very institutions that are supposed to protect those things instead turn on them. So they're just sitting around saying, oh, what do we do next? What do we want to do next? Maybe we should just work the process harder. Maybe there's another way we can go ahead and follow the rules and more effectively, and then we'll have our victory. They don't understand that the entire thing has been turned on its head.
Auron, when did it get turned on its head? I'm not old. I think I'm probably a little older than you, but I'm 42. But I've had a hard time trying to describe recently to my sons, they're 13 and 15, what America was like when I was a kid. I'm not some great grandpa. Come bounce on my knees, son, and I'll tell you about 15-cent cheeseburgers. I'm trying to explain to them what even television was like, and it's like I'm describing a totally different world.
Yeah, the key is really that it has been a slow process. It feels sudden to us now, but that's only because we have a little bit of perspective. If you look over time, you realize that the freedoms of the United States have been shifting for a long time. Most people don't talk about things like the fact that FDR stole all of the gold in the United States. We just don't talk about the fact that that happened because that would be really inconvenient to our understanding of things like the Constitution and rule of law. We don't really address the many different ways in which our government has grabbed for power for a very long time. But now that we've gotten into this radical position where it seems like anything, just a basic expression of faith or disagreement with government policy can be used, can be weaponized by something like the DOJ to destroy your political enemies, all of a sudden it feels like the whole roof is collapsing on top of us. But actually, the frog has been boiling in the water. It just was boiling very slowly and has suddenly realized what kind of trouble it's in.
Are the American churches going to stand up and do anything about it? This is something I scream about all the time. It's essentially a standing army sitting there that could vote its way right back into complete cultural dominance if it would wake up, and they don't seem awake. What's going on?
Well, one of the core things that happened to the church is that in things like the 1980s, the moral majority campaigns ended up losing particular parts of the culture war. And the lesson that many pastors took from that was that the involvement of Christians in politics is what had made Christianity unpopular. And if only they could evolve with the times and stay away from controversy and show that they were cool and hip and with it, then they would be able to go ahead and draw people back to church. But what we found is that the more the church conforms to the world, the less it's interested in involving itself in politics or speaking into important areas. It simply becomes less relevant. It simply becomes just another social organization that people may or may not show up to, which is why many of the mainline Protestant denominations are dying off, while many of the other denominations that demand more of the people that go to their church are the ones that are flourishing. And so I think we will probably not see an overall change in the church's attitude, but we will probably see the churches that are speaking out, the churches that are taking action, the ones that are demanding more, draw people who are interested in change. And that could be a positive development, but I wouldn't expect to see all of Christianity rise up against this, unfortunately.
Auron, you have a piece up about the danger of regime charity. What are you talking about?
So Mackenzie Scott, the ex-wife of Jeff Bezos from Amazon fame, of course, ended up giving a large amount of money to charity. I think it's something like $16 billion at this point. And a lot of people will look at that and say, oh, that's amazing. It's so great that she's handing out money to charity. And in her eyes, I'm sure she's trying to save the world. But in actuality, what she's doing is handing out large amounts of money to charitable organizations in theory, but in practice, they're actually organizations designed to reinforce the thought process of the regime, the morality and the norms of the regime. That money is funneled into these organizations, and they can do work that the actual government elected officials can't do. So, for instance, when the regime wants to go ahead and censor people on social media or get them fired, it would be a violation of the First Amendment, at least in theory, for them to go out and actively pursue that. But these charities can apply pressure to those different groups to try to get that censorship or that firing done under the name of being a charity. And so all of that money seems like it's going to help people, but in many cases, what it's actually doing is being donated to the total state, being donated to the powers that be and advancing the progressive worldview.
Auron, thank you, my brother. Hey, by the way, before you go, the total state, what's it about?
Total state is a lot about what we just talked about, that expansion of government power into these places that are not traditionally thought of as political, as being part of the state, but end up consuming all of our personal spaces and driving us all towards this hyper-politicalization that distorts the Constitution.
Go get it. The total state, everybody. Auron, I appreciate you as always, man.